What's going on, everybody? Good late morning or early afternoon for some of you. And we got to talk a little bit more about these Seahawks through the first three games because we want to talk about the Seahawks through the first three games because we're happy, right? We're happy with 3-0. We're happy with 3 wins. We're happy with having a borderline elite offense and a borderline elite defense. We're happy about a lot of things with this team right now. We're not happy about everything. There are some things with this team that are clearly not going the way we want them to go. But right now, the overall product is one of the best in the league. There are 5 3-0 teams right now, and we're one of them. That's not easy to do. And people say what they want to about the schedule. People can say what they want to about the opponents. But we'll have the opportunity to prove what's what against a better team later this season. We're going to have an opportunity to on Monday night. So, less than a week away, we'll be proving things one way or the other, at least somewhat. I'm sure if we beat Detroit, people are going to say things about Detroit. And I'm sure that if we beat, teams like the 49ers in a couple weeks, people are going to say things about them. But can't worry about that. So I want to talk about another element of this team that I don't want to get lost in everything else that we talk about, right? Because the Seahawks offense is, in terms of offensive points, offensive scoring, borderline elite so far this year, right? And it's pretty clear why they're up there. And it's also pretty clear the things that are holding them back, right? You've got the quarterback, you've got the receivers. To a certain extent, you have the running backs, although not having Walker these last 2 games has been a big drag on that. These are the things kind of propping it up. And then you have the things dragging it down, like the offensive line. So I've talked plenty about Geno over the last couple of weeks because he's been playing really good. And I think he played really good again yesterday. The interceptions are unfortunate, but they're also mostly fluky. And what he is doing on a snap-to-snap basis is pretty remarkable. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit more about these receivers. I want to talk about these pass catchers. Talk about what they're doing. Because that should not get lost in everything else that's going on here. We need to talk about these guys a little bit. And we're going to do it in a way that isn't just purely statistical, which is easy and useful, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. Real quick, before I go into these numbers, I hope you like this video. If you do, please click the like button down below. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to help support the channel. All right. So we're checking out Next Gen Stats. Next Gen Stats, great website. They do a lot of advanced metric stuff. They do a lot of tracking stuff. What they do is really tough. We as fans could never do all the work it takes to do all this stuff. They've got a lot of stuff that allows them to keep track of this data, to count these numbers. And it's really, really useful stuff when you're trying to evaluate things from snap to snap, right? Because, for instance, a wide receiver, right? You only notice the wide receiver when he actually catches the ball. And you only notice the receiver when he has the ball in his hands sometimes, or when he's dropping the ball, I guess. But there are other little things going on here that need to be talked about when it comes to the art of playing the receiver position. So what we're going to look at today is one particular stat that Next Gen Stats tracks called average separation. The distance in yards measured between a wide receiver or tight end and the nearest defender at the time of catch or incompletion. So basically, this stat tries to keep track of how good are you at building separation from your defender, or the defense in general if you don't have just one defender. So there are a couple things at play with that, right? A couple of things to consider when you have separation from a defender. There's the player himself. Is he fast enough? Is he quick enough? Is he deceptive enough with his route running? Is he a good enough route runner? And then there's also the offensive coordinator. What kind of job is he doing helping the receiver get into situations where he's going to be able to build separation? Is the play caller doing things the right way? So let's deep dive a little bit here. Let's take a look at every player. I think this is every player that's been targeted at least 15 times this year, or 5 times a game, listed in order from biggest separation rate to smallest separation rate on average. And for the record, my understanding, although this obviously changes from week to week, average separation is somewhere around 2.9 yards. It's just under 3 yards. So, think about that for a second. Think about how big a distance 3 yards is. And that's the average amount of separation that a receiver is getting. But to my knowledge, right now the average is about 3 yards. Call it 2.9 if you want to be a little more accurate. It's 2.9 something. So let's scroll through this list here. Let's look for some Seahawks. We're not seeing any Seahawks at the very top of the list, right? Got to go down. Got to keep going down. Keep going down. Okay, we're past the guys who have 4 or more. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay, we've got our first Seahawk here. Noah Fant and Tyler Lockett are tied at 3.4 yards of separation. So that is about half a yard above average. It's not elite. Elite belongs to the guys who are up here past 4 yards of separation per target. But Noah Fant and Tyler Lockett, our top tight end, and our number 3 receiver are a half yard ahead of the average. So let's keep going down here. Let's keep searching through this list. And let's find another Seahawk, DK Metcalf, 3.1. Also at 3.1 would be the other Seahawk who's actually on this list. The only other Seahawk who's on this list, because he's the only one who's been targeted enough, JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, 3.1. So that is slightly above average in the average amount of separation these guys get when targeted. Excuse me. So 4 targets on this team. 4 top targets. 3 receivers and 1 tight end. All 4 of them are currently doing an above average job of building separation. Like, you can go down through the list here. It's a pretty long list. You're going to find a lot of guys down here. So there's plenty more players where that came from who are building, in some cases, less than 2 yards of separation. Look at Marvin Harrison. He's literally the nut low, 1.7. He's the only player in the league at 1.7 yards of separation per target. I'm not saying that necessarily means he's a bad player or that he's playing poorly. I don't necessarily think that's true, but it does indicate that there is some element of the game that is missing with him right now that will come, and it's also maybe missing with the play caller, with the offensive coordinator. But the thing that really strikes me here is that while no Seahawk is super standout in this area, all 4 guys are clearly above average. 0.2 yards to half a yard above average. So compare that to last year. So this is the same stuff for 2023. So this was last season. And the first thing that jumps out to you is the Seahawks actually had 1 player who was elite in separation, JSN. JSN averaged 3.8 yards of separation per target. By the way, the fact that he was getting that open and we only used him as much as we did, kind of criminal, kind of a mistake in all likelihood. If somebody's getting open to this extent when he's targeted, you should probably target him more. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. You can see that the elite was 4.5 from Rondale Moore. And you can also see very few guys are topping 4 yards of separation. So the 3.8 for JSN is great. But where's the next Seahawk on this list? We're going to start scrolling here, but I'm just going to tell you right now, we're going to be scrolling for a minute before we find another Seahawk. Right? Okay, we're down to like 3.1 here. Okay, we're down to 3 flat. Okay, now we're down at like average. We're at 2.9. Remember, 2.9 is approximately average. I don't know if it was exactly average last year, but it's right around average. And I'm not seeing any Seahawks. We got to get down to slightly below average, 2.8 yards per target of separation to find Tyler Lockett. So, 2.8, I mean, it's still good. Like, it's not bad. It's still right around average. We're talking about 2.8 yards. It's not like he's doing a bad job, but we would call that below average. And then you keep going down the list trying to find another Seahawk. It's going to take a little bit of time as well. Yeah, DK Metcalf, 2.4. 2.4 yards of separation per target. And that's DK Metcalf, one of the most difficult covers in the league. A huge, huge guy with a ton of speed who strikes fear in the heart of any and all cornerbacks in this league. Nobody can physically match up to him. So you can keep going down, but you can see the DK is actually near the bottom. DK is quite close to the bottom here. The bottom's 2 yards. And this was a full season. This isn't a small sample size situation we're talking about here. So, yes, last year we had one guy who was elite in separation. I'd much rather have 4 guys who are all doing an above average job at it. That means whoever Gino is throwing to, there's somebody who is very likely open by a good margin. And I think that's more valuable than having one guy who's elite in that category. So, by the way, no tight ends here for the Seahawks because we didn't have any tight ends get targeted enough. But, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Another thing to highlight how good we have it here. We can look at the number of catches. We can look at the number of yards. We can look at the touchdowns. We can look at the highlight plays. Separation matters a lot. And we're seeing big-time separation from this crew. All right. Go Hawks. See you guys later. More videos coming soon.